And just like that, I've got 5 subscriber specials under my belt. That's pretty cool, and the rest of y'all seem to think so as well. For those who are new, real quick summation. In typical grab bag style, I asked my viewers to suggest a bunch of songs for me to review. I picked the top voted comments and rate them in this giant video you're watching right now. And for the first time, I have some picks given to me directly from my $15 patrons, 8 of them to be exact, so very special thanks to y'all for those. Anyway, there's a lot to get through, so let's begin the only way we can. Time for the nightmare tier. Oh yeah, about that. For the very first time, I have absolutely no songs in my bottommost tier. Wow, that's incredible. Thanks for not giving me any obvious crap this time. Okay, let's actually start now. Time for the bad tier. Nah, I'm just kidding. I wasn't about to get that lucky. Here are the 2 worst songs on this ranking.
They done man wrong, where are they now? Nowhere to be seen. Where they at? The power's strong, where am I now? I've been in.
This style of drill rap is an uphill battle for me in the best of times, and we're not dealing with the best of times here. This is such a monotonous beat and dull flow, it's extremely not my thing. Wish I had more to say about this, but no, I just hate it. Weirdly enough, I got a lot of EDM songs this time around, and sadly, EDM ain't really my thing. It's certainly not when it sounds like this. The most discernible feature here is that Mercy sample, and like, do we really need it strewn over this annoying stock beat that offers nothing else of intrigue? It runs out of its novelty appeal by like, the first drop, and then there's still 2 whole minutes left. Hard pass. I feel like Steven Sanchez could be a pretty good vocalist, but it's not like I could really tell with the ridiculous amounts of reverb here. All of the chords are in all the right places to signify the aesthetic it's going for, but it's a similar issue that I had with Skate. It's just too polished and sanded down to stir any interest in me. It's overwhelmingly tame, sterile even. It's not bad, it's just there. From RM's performance, I can certainly sense that there's some serious subject matter at the forefront, and a quick translation tells me that, yeah, it's an introspective piece on the tangled emotions that accompany his fame. But on a plain surface, it mostly comes off as one of those kinds of inspirational pop rap ballads that were big in the 2010s. Same structure and everything. And I never really enjoyed those songs, so Eugene has a hell of a voice though. I'd like to hear more from her.
Just wanna be part of yourself.
I mean, there are some interesting textures here, taking its theme of symphony and translating it to a pop environment, but also, it just kinda exists. It ebbs and flows for a little bit, but aside from some kinda pretty inflections on the hook, nothing here really ever pushes it over the edge. I'm not too hot on Clean Bandit in general, and I don't know, I got nothing.
I heard Jesus did cocaine on a night out.
The narrative building is a tad intriguing, but I really don't see the purpose of telling it through the eyes of the actual Jesus Christ on a cocaine bender. Feels like the whole song was kind of designed for edgy points, which, okay, fine. With all that said, I am a fan of the hyperactive beats that come in at the chorus. They're kinda nice. Guess we'll chalk it up to another example of me struggling with EDM. Eep. I just want to say that I never got a single K-pop song voted into any of my last subscriber specials, and this time around I got 6. Curious to know what's changed, if anything. Anyway, yeah, this is neat. It's got a bright and colorful sound, fitting to its name. The maximalist details in the production result in a positive, bubbly tune, but I don't know, I'm not exactly captivated by these performers either. Overall, yeah, it's a catchy tune, but nothing that ever feels more than just mildly pleasant to me. Supercut, to me, is one of the highlights of melodrama. It's a hard-hitting examination of Lord's prior relationship. The moments contained within are meaningful, sure, but these are also memories she's highlighting after the fact. Just as a supercut splices together the most noteworthy frames in the film, her wistful mourning of this relationship's end is colored by what stands out the most. It rides on that delicate balance between sadness and a matured reworking of these perceptions, all over an art pop instrumental that's just blissful as heck. It's quite great. But we're not talking about the original supercut here.
Supercut.
Yeah, this is odd. It's supercut, but with more pizzazz or something. These trap beats cut beneath Lord's vocals, themselves chopped across this rhythm almost to the point of incoherence, and the mood is shifted entirely from warm wistfulness to a villain song. It's a weird vibe. Oh, and also Run the Jewels is here, and okay, they sound as good as ever, but it's awkward. This whole thing is just a really odd sonic experiment. Fascinating, but odd. I think I prefer it over the Homemade Dynamite remix from around the same time, but I don't know, man, it sits weird with me. Yep, this is your bog standard ghost song, alright. I guess I dig the psychedelic garage rock sound, particularly how the band plays with this alongside some nifty horror imagery. Still, it doesn't seem like they have much more to offer beyond that. I just can't help but feel this is a far less fleshed out version of Dance Macabre, a song of theirs I really like. I don't know, it's fine I guess, but I'm not getting much more than what it presents on the surface, and I'm not really motivated to dig any further. Time for another dance-adjacent track I'm probably ranking too low. The good news is I'm enjoying that instrumental riff that ties the song together. It sounds to me like a super processed vocal track and actually has a cool ring to it. Moreover, Ollie Alexander sells this chorus, fueled by this strong desire to leave the destructive relationship at its core for good. The song isn't as cathartic as I think I'd like it to be and could stand to loosen up a bit more, but yeah, it's solid.
Can you distract me from all the disaster? Can you touch on me and I'll call me after?
SOS is an album I didn't love, but hell, I'll take any new music from SZA. With that said, Ghost in the Machine was never a favorite. SZA sounds good as always, but she also feels a bit restrained. I dig the lyrical depth concerning her anxieties around social media, but the song itself is a bit too sleepy to punch very hard. And, well, not gonna lie, Phoebe Bridgers feels a little out of place here, though I do like the emotional weight her part brings to the track. Overall, yeah, I wish I enjoyed this more, but I don't dislike it at all. It's fine, that's all. Bottom 10 is out and we're already at the first good tier. Wow, that's amazing. Anyway, let's just get through this tough one, shall we?
100 million stories and 100 million songs. I feel stupid when I sing.
First of all, the last thing I ever want to do is invalidate the very real feelings of Demi Lovato. There are a lot of very real emotions here. And as such, God, this is tough.
I tried and tried and tried some more. Told the secret still.
There are few more disheartening experiences than listening to someone so bluntly confess that they feel nobody is listening to their cries for help, or even cares enough to help pull them out of this dark place they often find themselves. It's incredibly crushing, it's uncomfortable, it's sad.
Anyone, please send me anyone.
And this is drilled in by the fact that Demi drives in that title line far more forcefully than any others. It's got a lot of the same raw energy as Praying by Kesha. Only this time, the power and defiance there is turned into desperation, even hopelessness. And then it just ends. There's no resolution, no glimmer of optimism indicating that they'll find their way out of their hardships. And that's honestly a bit too difficult of a pill to swallow that I'm comfortable indulging in, especially when I'm fully aware of the struggles that Demi's had to face throughout their life. But at the end of the day, my opinion of this song and its placement on this list doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Overall, I just hope Demi is doing okay.
Nobody's listening.
Alright, now that we've got the heavy stuff out of the way, let's move on to some more stupid fun. This is some pretty standard 2000s era pop punk, alright. Sum 41 never came off to me as among the more interesting of this era, but they have their one sound, and they sure do know how to replicate it pretty well. Some nice driving guitars and cool skate punk energy here, and yet I can't say anything about this song I couldn't also say about like 10 others in their catalog. Still, it's a cool skate punk jam. Yeah, I like it. As a genre, power metal never really sits completely well with me. It's a bit too big and cheesy for my liking, and that's kind of the case here too. Imagine my dissonance then when, upon digging into these lyrics, I realized that it's meant to be a tribute to famed World War II soldier Audie Murphy. I don't have time to go into the details of Murphy's life, but he's particularly known for his experiences with debilitating PTSD from the war, and he would spend the rest of his life advocating for government assistance for traumatized veterans. While I can see the heart that went into this recording, it all comes back to my qualms with power metal as a whole. The sound just doesn't sit with me as particularly earnest. It's kinda goofy, and thus tough for me to take entirely seriously. It's generally well performed, for sure, just not my thing is all.
I ain't missing you at all. Since you've been
Everything in me wants to like this more than I do. I mean, it's got everything I usually dig in this type of 80s ballad. Sparkly guitars, dreamy production that's dated in all the best ways. I'm totally on board with it from the very beginning. After a certain point though, it doesn't do very much with this. The chorus is good, but it becomes a slog in record time. Also, the title is repeated so much, and man does it get tiresome. I'm mostly on its side. I guess I just wish there was a bit more meat on its bones, is all. Alright, so let's take a moment to remember all the songs I've covered so far. Okay, now that that's in your brains, here's what I ranked above them all.
My bad habits lead to late nights and in alone conversations with a stranger I barely know.
First of all, this song is a goddamn joke. The fact it even exists in the first place is a joke, so I'm therefore treating it as pure sugary novelty, because that's exactly what this is. Anyway, yeah, it's utterly absurd just how much better this remix is over the original. Like, this re-recording of Ed's vocals just sounds so much better here. His delivery is fuller, a far cry from the whimpery vocals of the original, and everything else is so much bigger in general, from the overblown guitars to Ollie Sykes' ragged vocal contributions, and my god is it so close to being actually perfectly solid. It doesn't quite reach that level since, well, this is Bad Habits we're talking about, but all things considered, my god, they very nearly pulled it off, didn't they? Time for the first of 8 $15 patron picks, and, well, considering the type of song this is, of course this would be ranked the lowest. I guess I just don't have as much attachment to this guy as a lot of y'all might.
I remember when you asked me to live a life for...
I have no idea who Alpha Rad is, but I guess this is his music project, so that's neat. Anyway, this is a 7.5 minute multi-movement heartbreak ballad in the style of a 70s progressive pop number, and well, the mere ambition to create something like this is pretty damn admirable, that I can't deny. But what I also can't deny is how very much not a singer this guy is.
You remember staring daggers at me.
His tone and pitch are just very, very flat for pretty much this entire runtime. Additionally, these instrumentals are a tad basic, even a bit too quiet for the bombastic tonal shifts it's going for throughout. It does feel like he's playing his cards pretty safely, which, I get it, this is just a side gig for him after all, but the emotional resonance definitely suffers as a result. Despite all this, I don't know, I can't deny that there's something a bit endearing about this scrappiness. Some of these parts and melodies are pretty cool, and maybe the production doesn't quite measure up to what he's trying, but damn it, at least he's trying. And I'll give him some props for that, at least. Okay, so for this next one, I promise you that this is the official video. So, content warning for cartoon gore is in effect. Go to this timestamp if you'd like to skip. Anyway, let's continue. This sure is a pretty typical 2000s Fall Out Boy song, alright. If you're not into that, you're not going to be into this. And if you are into that, Well, you've probably heard this one already. Okay, the one thing that does set this apart is that vocal breakdown at the bridge, which is an interesting novelty for the group, but doesn't really sound great if I'm being honest. For the most part though, this has a decent groove and is catchy enough, so I can't complain too much. I like Twice, they have a cool vibe. This song is also a cool vibe, though perhaps a bit too stiff and calculated for what it's going for. I like the slinkiness of the verses, but the chorus especially is a little wonky. It takes a little bit of warming up to, but overall, it's a bop? Yeah, it's a bop. My absolute favorite part of the song, though, is actually how it ends. Die for me? Yo, I did not agree to this. What are you doing with that knife? Oh no! To start off, I fully admire the layers of production elements going on here. I especially dig the moments where the instrumental takes center stage and creates an atmosphere that is just really intense, palpable, fascinating even. At the same time, I don't know, something just ain't clicking with me. It feels like the song almost succeeds at becoming something truly cool and impactful, but just misses the mark. And I think it might just boil down to Quadeca himself. Again, lots of cool sonic moments here, but once all that opens up and plops him to center stage, I just lose interest. Full transparency, this particular cloud rap type stuff doesn't really click with me in the best of times, but I also want to emphasize there are good moments here. Like that loud, abrasive climax, easily the most resonant part of the song by far. I just wish that what came before had more to offer, is all. Perhaps it's a hot take putting this so low, but I don't know, I never quite got the hype. Lyzette are absolute masters at crafting fierce hooks, and that's true for this song too. These verse rhythms especially are so damn funky. Still, I don't know, this just never completely hit for me. Maybe it's the layers of late 80s production that weigh it down, maybe it's the dominance of Per Gessle when I've always preferred Marie Fredriksson, maybe it's these lyrics, which are frankly a bit janky, even for them. I don't know, I still like it, but give me Joyride or Fading Like a Flower over this one any day. First of all, lots of love for the old school disco feel here. The way it works in that old soul sample, speeding and slowing it down to fit the mood, that's pretty cool. Nonetheless, I do get the feeling that it plays all its cards rather early. The transitions between the fast and slow parts are a tad clunky. The slow parts are so smooth, yet sorely missed once the tempo pumps back up again. This is some pure, unbridled sonic joy for sure, and I bet it kills on the dance floor. But as a song, it's decent, that's all. Another subscriber special, another old Lily Allen song. Much like Knock 'Em Out, this one has that particular vibrant free-spiritedness of her early days, which I really like. And the gist of this song is, we live in a society. To clarify, it's basically a collection of observations she makes as she bikes through her city, images that seem nice and wholesome on the surface, but upon closer look, reveal less pleasant circumstances.
Hits her over the head, doesn't care if she's dead, cause he's got all her jewelry and wallet.
It's got a nice sound, utilizing elements of Jamaican ska to craft a very unique tongue-in-cheek atmosphere. However, I also feel like it's missing a conclusion, or rather, the conclusion is a bit too flippant than I'm comfortable with. She just kinda acknowledges all this and moves on. It's a song that certainly would have been amusing at its time, but alas, it's aged weirdly. It's kinda cute anyway.
Whatever you want, I got you now, baby. Anything you need, I'll make it so right.
Jeez, this song's atmosphere goes crazy. That deep thudding bass combining with those dark, spacious overtones. The feel is very cinematic, and Tinashe's warm voice fills in all those empty spaces so gracefully. With that said, it's also clear that this atmosphere is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and the hooks don't hit me particularly hard, even after multiple listens. Still, it's effectively sensual and smooth for sure, and it's honestly pretty unreal for a 2012 song. Even if this track doesn't strike me as a particular favorite, I'm always gonna vouch for Tinashe as an artist. You might enjoy this more than I do, so check it out. I got 2 Twice songs in this ranking. How very fitting. First things first, I'm not crazy. This is a sample of Dilemma, right? That's fun, and the song itself is also pretty fun, certainly very bright and colorful. I can't really see I get too much more outside of that though. It's a good time, but doesn't exactly break any new ground. I liked both Twice tunes here, that's for certain, but considering how much I absolutely loved the feels, I can't help but feel a little disappointed. Who knows though, maybe it'll grow on me.
Checkmate, I couldn't lose. What if I told you none of it was accidental, and the first night that you saw me, nothing?
I feel absolutely unequipped to cover anything from Midnights. Unlike most other Taylor Swift albums, this one seemed to slip completely past my brain. A personal issue, I'm aware, but an issue nonetheless. And I think Mastermind is a pretty solid example of what about the record just doesn't quite work for me. Swift's an obviously great songwriter, and it's all shown here, but nothing ever hits particularly deep, and I'm left feeling unsatisfied by the end. Same goes for the production. There are some excellent electronic swells and other flavors in the sound, but the second an opportunity arises for these to steal center stage and morph into something fantastic, it backs away. It's a well-made song, I'll give it that much, but it's also one that perpetually edges along true greatness its entire run, and that's just so frustrating. I'll stay sticking with Anti-Hero personally.
Summer has come and passed. The innocent can never last.
I've pissed off the Swifties, so why not take a stab at the Green Day-inators as well? I'll confess now that I'd never actually listened to American Idiot in full until like a year ago, and unfortunately this may have been too late. All the singles got very heavy rotation at their peak, so I already knew this one very well. But I've realized that this particular pop rock sound is one I've long outgrown, no longer something I tend to gravitate toward. Nonetheless, I do appreciate its emotional weight. It was written by frontman Billy Joe Armstrong about the death of his father, and you really can tell. It feels a bit barren overall, and it's far from my favorite of the record, but all things considered, it's satisfying enough for the occasional listener to. In 1983, prog rock legends Yes reached #1 on the pop charts with a song that sounds like this. And it's good? You're damn right. Alright, well, it definitely exemplifies that super plasticity found in a lot of radio cuts of the day, only this time it's somehow way more exaggerated. It goes out of its way to force some new sonic element into the mix again and again, and all this runs dangerously close to sensory overload. Yet this is more or less saved by producer Trevor Horn's absolute knack at crafting organized, layered soundscapes, so that's neat. Yeah, it's a big, dumb, utterly ridiculous pop tune, but, you know, at the end of the day, the 80s were just kinda like that. There's no use questioning it. Sometimes you just gotta jam along.
Sunlight sends you on your way, and those restless thoughts.
What a nice little surprise! The 2000s were an absolute diamond mine of charming female singer-songwriters, yet Big Runga is one who just slipped past my radar completely. This is a breezy little tune with a simple message about in-the-moment living, despite all the little inconveniences that may arise. The lyricism edges on some darker territory, but ultimately it's a song about anticipating the sunlight in spite of how dark and tragic things may seem today. It's not a tune that tries very hard to leave a huge impact, but it doesn't really have to. It's got simple objectives in mind, and it accomplishes these very well. Helps that Runga herself has such a sweet voice to carry us along. Yeah, this is really nice.
Are you walking, Annie? Are you walking? When you tell us that you're walking, then the sound of the window.
Alright, so my take on Michael Jackson's Bad album is that its hits tend to feel like less hard-hitting, more toothless versions of similar singles from Thriller. The title track, for example, seems to be trying to capture some of that Beat It energy, but falls a bit short. In addition, Smooth Criminal feels like a weaker sibling to Billie Jean, with its funkier atmosphere and similarly adult subject matter centered around a female character. And I don't know, I just never got around to loving this one as much. To be fair, Quincy Jones's production still goes hard as hell, especially at that bridge, holy moly. But like, alright, I'm just gonna say it. I much prefer what Alien Ant Farm does with this song, and I can't even blame nostalgia for that opinion, because I've known of the original for just as long. It's good, for sure, it's just never felt great to me is all. Another entry Country, another big and bright K-pop number. With that said, there's a bit more of a pulse here than with the other K-pop songs I've reviewed so far. The production is so vibrant, and I'm pretty amused by the slightly off-kilter directions the melody takes from time to time. There's a lot of energy to this one, that much more elevated by a pleasant emotional climax and guitar solo? Yes, please. Can't say this exactly knocks me off my feet or anything, but it's very nice and definitely the kind of track I turn to for a quick burst of colorful K-pop goodness.
There's a lot of fuck niggas in the club tonight.
Oh, you know I gotta have a funny number 69.
Trick Daddy.
Talk about a guilty pleasure. Man, I used to jam to this song as a kid, and then I completely forgot about it for several years until very recently, and man, it holds up. Although that's not to say it's dated well, I'd be crazy to even imply this. It's 100% a relic of the mid-2000s crunk era, and how much you tolerated that particular era will essentially determine what you think about this tune. But I don't know, its party energy is too addicting to pass up. Very special mention goes to that overblown yet hype as hell Crazy Train sample, as well as the guest verse by Twista, who absolutely goes off. Pretty great usage of Lil Jon as well. I really liked when we had him around. Nostalgia goggles are guiding me with this one for sure, but I know a fun, stupid party track when I hear it, and this just pushes all the right buttons there. Let's go! I sort of feel like I'm back to reviewing Sum 41 with this one. Yeah, Zebrahead was a band that I never managed to get into, which is weird considering I grew up in SoCal, the absolute mecca of skate punk. Anyway, this song finds the band a couple decades down the line, no longer the scrappy youths they used to be. Except they kinda still are. At least the energy is still there, found in these roaring guitars and lyrics about partying and grabbing life by each moment. It's not the most deep or innovative concept, but I appreciate the spunk for sure. I really like this pre-chorus in particular. It's just ridiculously hyped for no reason at all. At the end of the day, this sure is some by the numbers skate punk alright, but you know the saying, if it ain't broke, why fix it? Another $15 patron pick coming up for this one, and it's an Australian one-hit wonder from the 90s I've never heard of. Yeah, y'all followed the assignment pretty well for this one.
Hey Mom, why didn't you tell me?
But as for the song itself, it details this woman in the midst of a conversation with her mother, venting to her about some past flings and unfortunate heartaches that had come from them, and it frames us all with some very funny imagery of this hopeless romantic constantly getting hit by buses and trains.
So I walked under a bus, I got hit by a train.
At its core, it does feel like a pretty standard adult alternative cut from the 90s, something like Joan Osborne or Sheryl Crow, but I do think the creative touches of these darkly humorous lyrics give it a bit of an upper hand. If nothing else, it's certainly memorable.
What was it like when you were young?
And framing this as a conversation between this woman and her mother is a pretty nice detail as well. You sense that she's desperate for advice to keep away from these uncommitted men, but also that she'll probably ignore whatever advice she does receive, as she's just too addicted to the thrill of it all. There's an entire story wrapped up in this cute little song, and I was pretty impressed by it. It's certainly simple, but also a bit more clever than what may meet the eye. Overall, it's a cute little discovery. Thanks for this.
There's gonna be more to life than chasing down every temporary high.
This is one of those mid-2000s pop staples that I've always felt deserves a little more recognition than it gets. The melody is bright and catchy, and Stacey Orico has a really good voice, hitting those high notes particularly well. I think what's most interesting about this one, though, are those darker undertones of its lyrics, namely how it presents that universal anxiety of life's tedium. The feeling that we're just going about our routine, life slipping past our fingers while there's this big, mysterious something out there that hints at a brighter, happier future. If only we could find it. It's a nostalgic bop with just a bit of moodiness, and I always love those. Did you know that I have not one, but 2 backwash songs in this subscriber special? How did we get so lucky? Close enough.
It became a muscle, a hustle to be a Jack Russell, whose head was down.
I wish I really liked Gilla Band's 2022 album more than I actually did. It's fine, just underwhelming. Though yeah, Backwash is one of the strongest tracks there, and it's one I found myself revisiting even before I started work on this video. But it's the kind of track that I think is best examined in parts. In its entirety, it really doesn't dwell beyond the anxious delivery and mechanical rhythms of the genre I've heard time and time again. And even within these confines, it tends to play it remarkably safe. Well, save for a couple exceptional moments that really stand out and define this track as something pretty special. The first moment is this.
316 when his machine prepares to be cell.
It's a sudden moment of escalating intensity that shoots straight into my heart, and I don't know, I just think it sounds really cool. The second, and probably my favorite moment of the entire song,
No one looks cool around a was.
you heard that right. This song contains a literal jump scare, and gosh do I admire the gusto. Yeah, this feels like little more than a post-punk sonic experiment, but it also manages to have some fun with itself, and I totally respect that. Listen y'all, I love Kylie Minogue. She is a queen indeed. As for this song, well, it's good, that's for certain. It's got a pretty fascinating mood too, sultry while also a little cold and mechanical. It's like its own twist on the Y2K aesthetic of futuristic pop at the time, and that's so cool. But I don't know man, I just can never shake the feeling that there's something missing here. It's very minimal and open, which I understand as a point, but also lyrically it's kind of plain, it's repetitive to a near fault, and honestly Kylie has simply sounded better. Love at First Sight from this very album is a perfect example of all her strengths executed wonderfully. This, on the other hand, it's good, just not great is all.
Versace on the floor. Ooh, shake it off for me.
It's interesting how time can change an opinion. Back when I made my top 100 songs in the 2010s, I very nearly placed this in the top half. I loved it that much. But if I had to redo that list nowadays, I'm not even sure it would clear the number 100 hurdle. I think a big source of the appeal for me is just how much fluency Bruno Mars has in this brand of retro R&B, which is still a bit passé in this current age of throwbacks. And I always have a soft spot for the sound, especially these smooth melodies set across twinkling keys. But, well yeah, Bruno Mars has pretty much turned this routine into a high art, making this feel a bit more quaint as a result. It's a really nice sound, but as a novelty feels a bit more baked in the sands of time, it's kind of just fallen into the territory of plain pleasantness. I still really enjoy listening to it though, so yeah, you win. Now here's a name I haven't seen in a while.
Just calm yourself and don't you play that anymore.
And before you ask, no, I know absolutely nothing about Madeon. Rather, man, was I all about Passion Pit back in the day. And this is quite different from the regular Passion Pit fare I'm used to, but still quite nice. It's a positive, bubbly little tune that preaches to not fall victim to minor setbacks, stay optimistic in the face of adversity, and all that. The instrumental is strong and catchy, if a little inessential. It's not the kind of song that leaves a very strong impression, but for what it is, it's pretty good. It actually kind of bums me out that the best part of the song comes literally at the very end. That's so cool. Wish there was more of that strewn throughout the tune, somehow. The rest of the song is pretty solid though, so I can't complain too much. And just like that, this video is guaranteed to be dated in a few months or so.
Yo, listen, you hear that? Killers in the jungle. Killers in the jungle. Killers in the jungle. Yo.
Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy the Skrillex album. Some pretty fun stuff going on there. This one wouldn't necessarily be my track of choice. Give me Still Here with the ones I came with, and then we'll talk. But also, this is still quite good. There's some dark, intimidating atmosphere hidden within these dense layers of groove and texture, and I'm really smitten by that. Floatin' is a nice presence, and the chorus is especially pretty hype. The production definitely goes off the hook, but yeah, once again, EDM ain't my specialty, and I've just about exhausted all I can say about this one. It's time to move on.
沈むように溶けてゆくように
Oh, hi there, this song.
さよならだけだったその一言で全てが分かった
I feel like everyone and their mothers has reviewed this one by now, so I'm definitely coming into this pretty late in the game. First thing is that this is obviously a really cool sound, with a splendid driving beat and stiff plasticky keys that breathe life into the tune in their own ways. As for the tune itself, it's pretty fire. I will say that I prefer Gunju over this one, which I reviewed way back in my 1666 subscriber special. That one has got some more intriguing dimensions to its sound, whereas this just kind of sounds like a really cool pop song. I do understand, after looking at the translated lyrics, that this song is a lot darker than it seems on the surface, but I also don't think that much of that is really prevalent by the sound alone. It's not really until the downward key change near the end does the weight of these lyrics make itself particularly clear. I don't know, I like this, but have never quite connected with it in any notable way. Still a bop though. Ah yeah, rise up fellow emos! I've said before that I am an absolute shill for that 2000s era emo sound and aesthetic, and it's really not hard to see how Miss Murder has gone down as one of the quintessential anthems of the scene. It's a lot darker than the surface would imply, dwelling at that kind of morbid death fascination you'd expect from this kind of song. And the surface itself is slathered with bombastic hooks, roaring guitars, and man, just some of the coolest bass licks ever. I've listened to this song so many times it's practically written into my soul, and revisiting it for this video was such a treat. It's as theatrical as a song like this could get before dwelling into tastelessness, and it's certainly ridiculous. But it's also some stellar pop rock ear candy from one of the greatest eras in all of recorded music. Rock on, y'all. I knew Shakira's early material had its accolades, but I never actually checked it out till now, and, well, there's no other way to say it. This goes hard. Despite Shakira's Latin American background, this is actually more of an Arabic pop song. It incorporates some elements of Middle Eastern and world music, and it's a very cool vibe with a nice soaring feeling to it all. Nonetheless, it's also something that doesn't have a ton of depth to it. You get the gist of the song after the first chorus or so. Still, it's a very creative tune, and probably the closest I've gotten to getting actual Arabic pop into one of these videos. You go, Shakira.
When you left, I bet you held her body closer.
Damn, I wish I would have gotten into this during its chart run because, well, it's turned out to become one of my very favorite Halsey songs. To be fair, it's not like the music is anything exceptional. Pretty standard dance pop rhythms with standard pop song structure. But it's these lyrics that strike pretty deep, as Halsey recounts on meeting the person who would become their eventual partner. Though the circumstances were just not right at that point. And then sometime later, the stars aligned for them to realize that what they'd been looking for was right in front of them this whole time. That's really sweet. It's a pretty nice song at its core, but what really got me to love it was this part.
I think about him every day.
That climax at the final chorus, where the music really starts to pick up and match Halsey's energy, this part always gives me the chills. It's such a pleasant, happy ending, and I could always use those in my life. Yeah, nice stuff. I feel like a lot of the appeal of Hootie and the Blowfish comes with their graceful melding of a certain grunge-era grittiness with the softer Heartland sound, making it perfect for country radio and its adjacents. It certainly helps that Darius Rucker is a hell of a singer. But yeah, I've always liked this one. It's a pretty nice song with a good message about punching through the obstacles to make the best of oneself. It's got a pleasant adult alternative energy and is replete with the feel-good atmosphere all around. It does kind of just fold upon itself after a while, but when the vibes are this nice, I can't really complain.
Jolene, 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 I'm begging.
So we love Dolly. We stan her forever and ever, amen. And, you know, I also stan Jolene. How could I not? It's the quintessential classic country jam of queer femmes everywhere. But, well, this has always been an awkward case of a song that I've enjoyed every single aspect of, without it ever crossing over into love territory. Don't get me wrong, there is so much to love here. The slick tumbling guitar riffs, Dolly's sweet yet yearning vocals, the weeping violins that pop in for emphasis on the chorus, Mwah, so good. But to me, it's also a song that ends right when it starts getting really, really good. It's a narrative of infidelity told via a conversation between the speaker and her partner's mistress, the beautiful Jolene. It's an atypical, fascinating way to tell the story, and these lyrics really emphasize how helpless the speaker feels in this situation. Or at least that's what we're inclined to conclude, given the one-sidedness of it all. But once again, the tale ends far too quickly, and thus it is a little frustrating when we're given but a trickle of this incredibly compelling storyline with no real closure or twists or anything. On the other hand, this very open-endedness certainly provided ample fuel for all the lesbian Jolene fan theories through the years, so perhaps this was a blessing in disguise after all.
Every second of collective heartbreaks, all together every single
I wish I loved this Paramore album as much as everyone else seems to. I mean, in general, outside of a few songs, I've never really loved the band in the first place, so yeah. Anyway, this is about Paramore reacting to, well, the news. It's about the overwhelming number of real-life atrocities that feels much more heightened by the fact that we, collectively, are taking in more news about the outside world than any previous generation. And the outside world sucks right now, and has sucked for a while.
Shut your eyes, but it won't go away.
And this anxiety is amplified that much more by our curse of limitless knowledge. You can turn off the news if it gets too much to handle, but you can never turn off your own heightened awareness of these daily inhumanities. And that's more distressing than can ever be put into words, man. As for the song itself, it's a pretty solid rocker, if unexceptional. Moreover, it doesn't draw any strong conclusion from anything here, but I also don't think it really needs to. Sometimes all you need is some off-the-cuff righteous anger about this very feeling of helplessness we all share. And like, same y'all. Oh, hello again, Demi.
Finally 29, funny just like you were.
I checked out Demi's album from last year, and while I wasn't completely fond of it, I do think that this is the style where they work the best. Loud, blunt pop rock with torn and tattered edges. And this title track was certainly a highlight, where their bluntness is implemented most effectively.
17, 29.
This song takes aim at an ex of Demi's who groomed them into a relationship back when they were 17 and he was 29. Now that they are finally at the age he was, they have the benefit of hindsight to look back at the situation and realize just how fucked up it was.
17 would never cross my mind.
And Demi does not hold back here. They spend most of their time emphasizing just how young and unprepared they were back then, having been thrown into a situation beyond their capacity of understanding. And trust me, I was there when it happened. The 2000s were so bad, y'all. And this is quite the powerful song because it offers a crucial perspective on the situation that so many have gone through, straight from the mouth of a person who's grown through the experience. It's sad, sure, but it's also rightfully fierce and scathing. All this said, I think I might admire this song more than I actually enjoy listening to it. The instrumental is a bit too washed out, and Demi's bluntness takes a certain time and place to get used to. Nonetheless, God, what a song it is.
No other thing that's as precious to me.
The tropical house trend of the 2010s was never anything I really jumped on board with. Big surprise for me, I'm sure. Though I will say that one thing that does get me excited is a steady dance rhythm with some other warm, soulful element added to really loosen up the vibes. And in the case of this girl, this very game-changing factor can be found in the lovely, jazzy vocals of Kylie Aldist, who brings some great liveliness to the mix. I really dig the horn elements implemented here. They bring some real warmth to a track that might have otherwise not completely landed for me. All this blended together makes the song probably the best product of the aforementioned tropical house movement, and I'm all for that. And now for another pick that will immediately date this video. We got quite a few of these this time around.
Sex symbol, the black Seminole.
So let it be known that I've been on Team Lil Yachty for several years. I recommend y'all revisit his first album and some of those older mixtapes, because he's been diving into experiments and layered mellow vibes this entire time. Anyway, here's the opener to Let's Start Here, and yeah, it's really cool. It's very clearly a song intended as an introduction to this new stage of his sound, heading into a psychedelic rock direction. The organic neo-soul this instrumental blends nicely with the synthetic vocals, which, wow, yeah, this does sound pretty good. It's an array of sound that gets all that more fleshed out later on the album, but it's clear why this is the one that got pushed here. And of course, we gotta talk about the breakdown, with its Pink Floyd-esque flavor swimming through the mix, followed by Diana Gordon giving her own introduction of sorts, and my god does it shine. It's not the most robust, detailed track of its kind, and it does feel like there are some empty spaces to fill and loose edges to tighten, but goddamn do I admire the ambition. Oh man, here's a fun one. So I was really into Muse back in the day, and definitely bumped Black Holes and Revelations quite a bit. It's a little weird coming back to this song though, since it's clear that this is one of the album's weaker cuts. It's still good, no doubt about that. It's got a pretty fun groove and some neat guitar stuff, although little by way of meaningful resonance. One thing I will note is, I swear to god, the buzzing guitar funk paired with the slap percussion and falsetto vocals are seriously giving Prince vibes. I know it's a stretch, but it's how I feel, dudes. That's about as interesting as it gets though. It's a cool dancey sound that builds for a little while, takes some interesting sonic turns, takes a bow, and leaves. Perfectly solid stuff, but for an album with freaking Knights of Sidonia, I'd more often take the latter. Continuing with the aughts nostalgia, and well, honestly, this has always been my least favorite of the three big songs from this album. Don't get me wrong, I do dig that catchy synth riff, it's just about carved into my brain. But the song itself has always felt a bit simplistic, a little too tied to its structure, and yeah, as cool as that riff is, it can really wear out its welcome if I'm not in the mood. And yet, I can't help but admire the hell out of this one. It's a plea to exercise the empathy inherent to every one of us, to remember the wide-eyed innocence we all possessed as children, and to go through life equipped with such optimism deep in our hearts. It's a bit of a naive wholesomeness, sure, but it mostly works. It was certainly a unique vibe back in the day, perfect for ushering in this new wave of weird indie pop. It's a cute song. I'll take it. You know, I've said a lot of positive things about Florence and the Machine's Free, it being one of my favorite songs of last year. Yet, I never really noticed that this theme of resilience is something that's always kind of been prevalent in her work. This song is yet another one of these kind of tunes, and while I think some of these lyrics read a little wonky, it's more than made up for by the impactful build-up to that very cathartic chorus. It also helps that Florence Welch has the powerful vocals and emotional coloring to make this all really soar when it's most crucial. I can't say this is necessarily my favorite tune from Florence and the Machine, but like her best stuff, when it hits, man does it really hit. Damn, it's too bad I'm not a woman, because if I was, I'm sure this next song would make me feel like the hottest girl of all time.
Que si tengo flow cabrón, que si meto la presión, si tú no puedes conmigo, mala mía. Que si vengo pesadita, que si ya tengo tetita, si me tire con tu gato. To start, Villano Antillano is an absolute force to be reckoned with. She absolutely owns this track from the first moment she spits, and her confidence is damn infectious. I swear, I never want to hear anyone praise Eminem's tiresome fast rapping ever again. Villano has the skill and the swagger. She's the whole package, man. This line in particular has been stuck in my head the entire time I've worked on this video, and it's one hell of a mantra for sure. To be honest though, she might be the one reason to come to this. I do get the appeal of bizarre rap simplistic beats that aim for a little more than a chill atmosphere for his MCs, but I don't know, I think the one featured here is kinda weak. Certainly in comparison to the beat for a session with Quevedo, which absolutely goes off. This one simply leaves much to be desired. But like I said, I'm mainly listening to this for Villano, so that makes this little more than a minor misfortune. Hot trans femmes rule the world, y'all.
Don't leave, it's my fault.
And now for another song I talked about as one of my top 100 hits of the decade. Yeah, there were a lot of these this time. Oh well, less work for me, and I'm much better at this now anyway. This continues to be one of the highlights of Igor. It's appropriately melodramatic and soulful, with one of the best pop hooks of Tyler's entire career. The combination of these booming beats and little synth inflections on the hook make this an absolute treat. Playboy Cardi's verse is still as weird as ever, but it's got a goofy charm to it I've always really dug. I've definitely grown less obsessed with the song, given the passage of time and all, but it's still a banger, that I can't deny.
Everything's burning down when I close
I tend to get a bit lost with this kind of conscious hip-hop for no reason other than the lyricism with these songs tends to be a bit oblique. And that's kind of the case with this one, but Black Thought has always been such a magnetizing presence in his game, and I'm definitely hooked here. His flow is incredibly cool, and he paints such a fascinating narrative with the strings of expressive rhymes, it's just hypnotizing. But what really drew me into the song is the instrumental. The poignant swells of the strings, the sleepy, soulful feel as a whole. I'm absolutely living for this. Michael Kiwanuka's hook is also just as gorgeous, acting as that subtle emotional stroke that ties both verses together so eloquently. It's just a really good song that does not overstay its welcome in the slightest. Great stuff.
Time for everyone to point and laugh while Liz tries to talk about jazz.
Truth be told, I do actually enjoy a lot of jazz classics from the big greats. I've listened to a lot of the acclaimed works and performers, with John Coltrane ranking among my very favorites. But then that leaves me with the unique problem of explaining, as a reviewer, just what it is that makes Giant Steps by John Coltrane so good.
And I don't really have a satisfying answer for that.
For the most part, I tend to experience and critique music using my emotions as a guiding light, as opposed to any solid backing of quote-unquote objective musicianship. Rather, songs that give me more enriching feelings on an emotional level are ones I tend to enjoy the most. And in the case of Giant Steps, well, I just admire the playfulness of Coltrane's performance, the frenetic romps and leaps through a number of key changes, all handed to us at a blistering yet exciting pace. All this placed along some subtle keys and absolutely fun drum patterns. It's just so good. It's one of those cornerstones of jazz that feels like it has a personality entirely its own. I don't know a whole lot, but what I do know is that this is hype as hell, and I hope I made even a little bit of sense here.
Why don't you take what you want from me? Take what you need from me. Take what you wanna go.
And again, another song I've already talked about. Y'all really need to watch my older videos, I swear. Anyway, this is really quite silly, but, well, the circles I'm in have overplayed this song to hell and back, and as cool as this tune is for just plain existing, it's proven to not be immune to oversaturation.
But really, the strongest feeling I get from listening to it these days is overwhelming nostalgia.
Hollywood's Bleeding was one of my biggest fixation albums of 2019, and listening to any part of it today really takes me back. As for this song, well, it's a great synergy of two performers at the peak of their talents, joining forces with an absolute giant in a genre that seems to come totally out of left field. And yet it works. It's an insane idea of a song that achieves such a stellar amount of proficiency, it fully digs itself out of its novelty territory and comes all the way back around to banger territory. Yeah, I'll say it. It's a modern classic. Well worth its accolades for sure.
Nights get longer, days get hard.
I don't know a whole lot about the contemporary country scene, yet I am compelled to declare that there isn't anyone writing music quite like Adeem the artist. Their work on Cast Iron Pansexual proves their penchant for delicate, emotive songwriting, and this certainly isn't lost in the polished nature across their second album, White Trash Revelry.
And Middle of a Heart is... man, it's something.
Adeem's storytelling is as poignant as ever, reckoning with the oppressive ideals of American patriotism and how it bleeds into the daily lives and traditional expectations of average folks.
I learned to put a bullet through the middle of a heart.
Particularly striking is how they envelop this twisted American dream with the culture's all too prevalent glorification of gun imagery. Like, man, the storytelling is so goddamn sharp, it's amazing. This is also some of the most blunt storytelling, which honestly works as a bit of a double-edged sword. In particular with how this narrative concludes, there's a certain nuance that seems to be strangely absent, which is something I know they're great at, so it's a little bit frustrating. That's no underestimation of its power though, as the heartbreak here cannot be denied. Just check it out for yourself. It's really good stuff.
I would've stayed on my knees, and a damn sure never would've danced with the
And here's where I reiterate my personal frustrations with Midnights. Except this is one of the deluxe edition tracks, and, well, interestingly enough, this one stands head and shoulders above most of the others.
The ebbs and flows of the melody certainly feel more suited to Swift's strengths, as do the detailed lyricism.
If you never saved me from boredom, I could've gone on as I was.
Here, she looks back at a past relationship, one she undertook at a very young age with a much older man. She's long removed from this, but still feels sincere regret over the rash decisions she's made, and the days of her youth she had given up in the process. It's left a mark on her all the way to now, as, to recycle my words from a past entry, she was essentially pulled into a situation she lacked the capacity to truly understand. And these experiences and traumas, they shape us, and they shape how we understand ourselves and undergo relationships, even to this day. And all we can do now is look back and imagine how different things would have been. If only we knew.
Give me back my girl, that it was mine first.
God, this part destroys me every time. This is a lot to unpack in too short of a segment. Perhaps I can do so at a later date, but for now, just know I'm very much impressed by this one. You know, songs like these are exactly why I opened up the $15 tier. Y'all, I just love when I'm given a chance to plunge headfirst into some territory I have little to no experience in, so why not try my hand at one of the most extreme of genres? Yep, it's time for some black metal, y'all. First of all, yes, you're hearing this right. This song is abrasive as all hell. In fact, you could even say that it does everything within its immediate power to present itself as harsh and vitriolic as humanly possible. From the thick layers of clashing instrumental to the caustic screams of its frontwoman seemingly drowning in this mix, to its regularly shifting tempos and phrasing, and, I mean, my god, just listen to this. At the same time, though, it is quite the deceptive little song. Hiding beneath the tomes of seemingly shapeless noise are moments of beauty that poke through every so often, glimpses of striking familiarity that keep the song from completely falling apart just so. Even when the song gets so wrapped up in itself it feels like it could barely stand on 2 feet, somehow it persists. I want to point out this specific moment. It's especially incredible. The stuttering groove threatens to fall apart under the weight of its enormity, and yet it doesn't. It powers through with a far more rewarding climax than could have ever been predicted. God damn, this sure is something, alright.
You've already won me over, in spite of me, and don't be
Jagged Little Pill is such a delightful album, definitely worth all its praise, and you need to stop putting off listening to it already. And of the non-You Oughta Know cuts from this record, I think Head Over Feet might be my favorite of hers. It's little more than a simple love song in the grand scheme of things, but Alanis' clever songwriting inserts some sly, clever turns of phrase, bringing so much more color to these declarations. Not to mention the spirited little harmonica solo, which essentially encapsulates the basest feeling of a new, thriving romance, all on its own. And yet there's one thing that kinda bugs me about this one.
I am aware now. You've already won me over.
This verse to chorus transition has always sounded so weirdly clunky to me, and I can never pinpoint why. Not a deal breaker by any means, but it is a tad distracting. Anyway, pedantic observation aside, this is an absolute delight. Just another example of why Alanis rightfully ruled the 90s. Okay, $15 tier folks, y'all have a little more freedom to give me whatever you want for me to review, and I appreciate all of it for sure. I just have one request. In the future, can you please make all of them as incredibly badass as this one?
Paranoid and pissed off. Now that I got the money.
God damn, this song is astounding. For some background, this track was inspired by an incident wherein Gary Clark Jr. was harassed by a racist neighbor who just could not believe that he, a black man, could possibly own a 50-acre property all his own. And stuff like that just makes my blood boil, because such situations happen in this backwards country all the damn time, while these very same perpetrators try to claim, oh, racism is in the past, we're equal now, just get over it. It's upsetting, and I could only imagine it's even more so for those directly affected.
Nigga run, go back where you come from.
All that said, damn is this great. Clark steals center stage here. He is rightfully upset by these micro and macro aggressions and uses the space to take down the self-entitled racists who try to demean his achievements and basic humanity. The attitude here is fierce and prominent, and his words all that more punctuated by the noisy swells and exclamations of his guitar. And damn, that guitar also rules, especially at that ending solo, which takes all of the anger of his previous words and distills it into pure emotional expression. There's a lot of anger here, but there's also so much pride and a very palpable, absolutely unbreakable strength that vibrates off every note. It's a song that deserves far more of an unraveling than I can give here, but man is it powerful, and I can only hope I did it at least a little justice. Fun fact, I absolutely love anime. Another fun fact, I've long accepted that I will never, ever catch up with One Piece. With that said, Otto's music for this latest film is absolutely fantastic, including this one. The synthwave production rides this current trend of 80s throwback aesthetic, but uses it less like a crutch and more as just one element of many in its sonic personality. And it's a hell of a personality. All of its little nooks are colored in with this pounding percussion and joyful guitar, and Otto herself absolutely gives it her all. I sensed a strong anthemic prowess in this one even before looking up the translated lyrics, and yeah, that's basically what this is. A declaration to go against the grain, to accelerate onto whatever path makes all your wildest dreams come true. And that's a vibe I think we could all use a little more of these days. I know I sure can.
Burnt offering in the desert, shining city up on a hill, I burned it like Nebuchadnezzar.
This Billy Woods album was among my favorites last year. I probably would have preferred NYNEX to be the one I talked about here, but Remorseless is quite good as well. Woods has such a distinct way of threading his poetic verses along and through each other, working to carve out a narrative of lifelong struggle and dispel some life lessons to whoever may be listening. This is the kind of song that absolutely demands an in-depth line-by-line analysis, which, yeah, time constraints do exist, so I absolutely cannot give it here. But I will say that these lines in particular are among my very favorites of this entire year in hip-hop.
Money phone, pocket dial, wrong come save me. Sweet old ladies, poisoning pigeons in the pool.
All of this molded together by an absolutely haunting instrumental that just strikes deep in the heart. Woods is an incredible MC overall, and I'm hoping the very best for him. Y'all just couldn't wait till December, could ya? As I've said before, K-pop isn't really my strong point, and the fact that I've latched onto Ditto so strongly has been a completely unexpected turn of events. It's the kind of vibey atmosphere that holds up incredibly well to overplay, plus it's just adorable. The girls of New Jeans don't break any new mold, which, yeah, they're very young, so I don't fault them. But what they are is tender, and it makes this sweet lovelorn innocence that much more heightened. It's so uncomplicated and breezy, and I love it a lot. And yeah, it's very likely going to be featured somewhere in my best list video, so I'll save any detailed thoughts for that one. Simply put though, this is really easy to love, and I suspect that'll remain the case for quite some time. Alright, hold your horses. Before you run to the comments to call me hipster trash, let it be known that this is only one of like 3 Tame Impala songs I actually enjoy. And even then, let's be real, Elephant by the Wiggles outsold. Anyway, yeah, it's funny to me that this was voted in, since it's actually been a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine since just before the submission period. How serendipitous. And truthfully, it's all about the groove for me. Those cool sparkly synths playing alongside that bass riff, which is one for the ages. It's vibes atop vibes for sure. All that said, yeah, it's true that these lyrics are a bit dopey if you pay attention to them for longer than a second. Man tries to cope with these feelings of rejection and heartache, but it feels a little too self-entitled that I'm comfortable with. I don't know, despite my qualms, this is my very favorite kind of musical junk food, and I think I'll continue to have a blast with it every single time.
Wow, that's hot. This hell is better with you. We're burning up together, baby.
Hi Rena, we meet again.
Alright, so my take is that the highs of Sawayama may be higher than most songs of Hold the Girl, but this hell alone stands toe-to-toe with so many of these highs. First of all, I love this message. Rina plucks out these shrouds of hyper-religious bigots, those close-minded people who despise queer folk. She sees these people, throws up her hands, and loudly declares, sure, you win. But if we're going to hell, let's make it the best goddamn party ever, and you're not invited. Amazing. Helps that it sounds great too, with that bombastic groove, as well as what may be one of the very best choruses of her career. And let's not forget that kick-ass guitar solo. Yeah, any song that makes me happy to be queer is always going to be a big plus for me. I just can't help it. Yay!
I'm going back to 5:05 if it's a 7-hour flight.
I've lambasted Arctic Monkeys in my subspecials before, but truth be told, their earlier material kills. The first two albums are especially pretty great, and this closer has always felt to me like a highlight of Favorite Worst Nightmare. Just the way the song begins is incredibly evocative, with Alex Turner's soft singing punctuated by a droning organ riff seeping below the surface.
When you look at me like that, my darling, what did you expect?
It's a soft, sensual mood at first, but as the lyrical details build and build, so does a certain unsettling feeling, a tension between the singer and the person whom he is addressing. And the way the music mirrors this build-up is equally as delicious. I just love the way the song builds upon its dynamics. It's so good. And then it reaches a particular breaking point that is no longer impossible to ignore, a bitterness that now envelops their entire relationship. What was once intimate has now become loud, inelegant, ugly, and that is what we're left with. A lingering tension that cannot be resolved. I have no idea why the TikTok kids picked this one up in particular, but I'm really glad they did. It's a highlight of Arctic Monkeys' career, and a damn good song in general.
Slow, say something nice to me, say something nice to me. I know that I agree.
To be honest, Ray's album was spotty, certainly unique and quite a blast to be fair, and as inconsistent as it could be, its high points really shone. The firm jazz soul atmosphere feels very 2000s in its production. In particular, I'm hearing a lot of Amy Winehouse in this swagger, as well as in Ray's confident slur of a delivery. She's just so good. I do think the slower bit in the center is a little awkwardly placed, but I understand why it's there. You could only remain brazen and confident in delivery for so long before the sadness really takes over, at least for a little while. Overall though, she gives a great performance and goes off on that final chorus in particular. Songs like these have me very excited for what else we can expect from Ray in the future. As I said in the reply to this suggestion, 2000 nostalgia is a near guaranteed way to get on my good side, and it definitely counts here. DANCE doesn't have a whole lot at its disposal, mostly just a few samples and a slick bass groove, but goddamn does it work so well with what it does have. The string samples are placed in such impeccable arrangements and escalate such a groovy nocturnal atmosphere to the mix. I'll be the first to tell you that child vocals are typically a downside for me, but I don't know what to tell you. These vocals just work here, and I simply couldn't imagine this song without them. Likely because the song itself is already so bright and youthful, it's only natural. At this point, everyone acknowledges that this is a classic in 2000s electro house, and for damn good reason. It rules. Plain and simple.
She might let you fuck, but she won't. She don't need you for shit, but your dick and your veins and your guts and your...
Holy cow, this is something. So in case I haven't mentioned before, I am a big fan of horror. Namely horror films, but I also love when the qualities of this art form bleed over into the music. And as you would expect, an artist like Clipping is more than likely to hold my interest.
She trying to suck face off the bone, you should know she is prone to swallow the marrow.
This atmosphere is absolutely addicting. Deep pounding bass, throbbing percussion. Lyrically, yeah, this certainly is a song about a woman who seduces men, kills them, and eats their flesh alright.
She got nails dead, hair dead, body right, teeth white, not sharp, getting...
Daveed Diggs gives quite an intense performance, and his Spitfire wordplay is absolutely tops. But the most valuable player is the occasional background whirl of that power drill, which honestly shakes me on a visceral level.
Kill some girl, kill some girl, kill some girl.
And And with that point, this might be the single track on this whole list that's hardest for me to come back to. The sonic overstimulation, Diggs' deranged celebratory chanting at the hook, yeah, this is a lot. But once again, this is fully in my ballpark. This gives me an unsettling feeling when I listen to it, and I really dig that. I love that music can make me feel discomforted, even terrified. And with all this, well, this just pleases me in ways that few songs could ever quite match up to. Great stuff. Much like with The Less I Know the Better, this was also a song I was really getting into late last year, though this one makes a little bit more sense. It's one of those songs that just kind of stumbled onto my radar last year, fully unpredictably, and I was instantly hooked.
My kindness is of a false pretense. I got the ego of a god.
I don't know a whole lot about Hemlock Springs, but she asserts herself in the scene so wonderfully with this song alone. This one is early 80s new wave in sound, yet another in the line of retro throwback tracks, yet she manages to nail that specific element of this era that no one else has gotten quite right. That being, just how weird it was.
Secretly, I'm aiming for a rhythm that exceeds my expectations.
Alongside this pleasant synth atmosphere is a rather unique vocal performance, replete with cutesy melodies, but also shrill outbursts, as if her lovelorn feelings are too intense to keep locked away in quiet dignity. Her bounciness honestly gives me shades of Rick Ocasek from The Cars, which is a huge plus for sure. Honestly, my only real complaint about this song is that it isn't at least a little longer. But for what short time it has, it uses every second to its absolute fullest. So yeah, just an incredibly charming bedroom pop cut. I just couldn't ask for too much more. So, remember when I said this? Though I will say that one thing that does get me excited is a steady dance rhythm with some other warm, soulful element added to really loosen up the vibes. Well, this girl is fine and dandy and all, but as far as that point is concerned, I could think of no better case study than this next song, because...
Let me down easy. For your love for me is gone.
wow.
Let me down easy. Let me down easy.
Holy cow, this build-up is so smooth and mysterious, like little else I've heard in the genre. Not to mention the fiery, impassioned vocals of Betty Lyzette, who absolutely owns this track. And it absolutely does not stop there either.
Yeah.
It continues this momentum with the second stage of build-up, which is, man, I'm just overwhelmed at this point. It's tremendous and calculated, effortlessly ticking up the anticipation points toward the eventual drop that much more. It's easily one of the best things I've heard in this kind of EDM, like, ever.
When you pass by me, say hello.
But okay, how is it after that point? Well, it's still pretty good. It does tend to plateau from this point, and nothing else is quite as incredible as that intro, which honestly is an issue I tend to have with a lot of dance music in general. Nonetheless, I also think that The Last Goodbye works past these limitations better than many others. It rides on some glorious house strings for a little while, and it sounds really good as it does so. And just when you think, yeah, we're just gonna ride on this wave for the rest of the song, bam. Funky bass breakdown comes to save the day. Man, that is just so fascinating. I love it. It's just all kinds of vibes through and through. Very nifty stuff. So glad I discovered it.
Terror packets in my early habits on the verge of losing my soul. I see the terror happen just from where I'm standing.
I first discovered Backwash when she was voted into my first subscriber special, and since then she's only been releasing even more fascinating work. She's one of the most emotive, intense rappers working right now, and that's something I've always loved about her. I wanted to mention all that as a preface because honestly, she may be the least interesting factor here. Maybe that's not completely fair to say, but I'll twist it back around by saying that this atmosphere is terrific and chilling, with deep drones and vocal samples that build up this cloud of hazy, hellish energy that is just so damn effective.
I feel the ember gases everywhere I'm back, and as it burns, it's leaving my nose.
And Backwash, as always, is great. The way she goes off on this hook especially hits like a goddamn hammer. Although I must give a special mention to Censor Dialogue, whose introductory verse practically makes this whole song. It's incredibly descriptive and poignant, certainly the part of the track I always return to personally. Altogether, it's such a harrowing, unrelentless look at the experiences of Black trans folks and the oppression of their daily lives, spilled forth from their own mouths. And there are few things more horrific than the cruelty of the outside world.
If you are a Black person and live in the Black community all your life.
Ending it on the Angela Davis quote to tie this all back to the universal experience of Black folks in general, constantly being othered by the world around them in these progressively violent ways. Damn, that's just powerful. Amazing stuff. Let's just continue with the horror music, shall we? This is a pretty tough song to review. For one thing, well, I'm talking about it outside of the context of its parent album, which I think removes at least a little bit of its inherent power. You should just go ahead and listen to Preacher's Daughter for the full effect. It's one of the best albums of last year, for sure. On that note, it feels important to add some context, particularly that this is the point of the album where the narrative takes a rough pivot from uneasy territory straight into something akin to a literal horror film. The whole album develops its sonic throughline in some very fascinating ways, and this is one of its most intense stages. In this story, Kane is ensnared in a cycle of abuse and exploitation, this moment finding her in a hallucinatory state of helplessness, and it is chilling. Within these layers of sound, we hear voices that may be there, or may just be a figment of Kane's illusory state. This mood reminds me of those particular moments in stage musicals where the villain takes center stage in a dark victory number of sorts. Although, obviously, the camp and theatricality is fully removed here, replaced with the stark, downright terrifying out-of-body experience. All of this hits a particular nerve at the song's breaking point, which, well... That panicked final scream is tremendous and frightening, and the droning chords that follow fully seal the deal. It's the moment of brutal finality and agonizing death, and boy is it potent. It's an absolutely soul-crushing listen, and it never gets any less powerful. Okay, I repeat, songs like these are exactly why I opened up the $15 tier. If you're aware of the notoriety surrounding Patty Waters' 1966 rendition of this vocal jazz standard, you're either thrilled to see it up this high or absolutely confused why it was even pushed in the first place. And if you're not aware, well, you're in for a ride. I can't even begin to describe the absolute anomaly that is Patty Waters. To call her a pioneer in the free vocal jazz scene is but a minimization of the universes contained within this recording alone.
Is the color
I gotta mention off the bat that, yes, this song is 14 minutes long, and it is excruciating. It's a pretty standard cover at first, with huge quotations over the word standard, as Waters seems to reject all conventions of tunes, atmosphere, and, well, good taste. For the bulk of its length, it rides on little resembling proper rhythm, save for the skittering percussion and irregular bass and piano chords, along with whatever structure Waters supplies with her absurd vocal contorting. And then we start to veer off the rails, little by little. Yeah, this is the kind of song that reaction videos were made for. Sadly, I could not find any out there, so y'all know what to do. Anyway, there comes a point in the song where this metaphorical train is no longer just a little wobbly. It instead goes on to drive headfirst off a goddamn cliff. How? Why? This is insane. I've talked a few times about my love for horror, and, well,
This is a full Monty, y'all. The kind of artifact that the most gung-ho horror directors could only dream of capturing. It's much like Waters herself has become possessed by some demon as she chants that singular word again and again in total hysterical detachment. Needless to say, this is an absolutely torturous listen, and also one that I'm utterly, incurably fascinated with. It's a recording that explicitly attempts to make itself as crass and unappealing as possible, but I'm only that much more compelled to dwell chin deep in its array of swirling, hellish madness. It's the car crash I simply cannot look away from. There is really no other song quite like this one, and I feel pretty honored to have been able to bask in its peculiar glow, if only briefly. The last few songs are pretty tough to move on from, but yeah, sure, this is an appropriate cool down. You know, Freebird is cool and all, but I think I'm comfortable saying for the record that this is Skynyrd's masterpiece. The song was written by the band as an implicit response to them getting signed to a major label, knowing that life as they knew it would never be the same again. And, well, as these things tend to go, it's presented in a way where it could relate to damn near any transitory experience in one's life. It hinges largely on the phrase, "Tuesday's gone with the wind," which, you know, just about says all that needs to be said, man. And it piles on this healthy dose of sentimentality with an even stronger instrumental bass. I mean, goddamn, the keys in this song alone are so ridiculously gorgeous. And that bridge especially is, gosh, it sure does boil down the entire appeal of this band to its clearest elements. It's just good music. Plain and simple. The tune captures much of the same appeal of Freebird with its poignancy, sprawling atmosphere, and layered sound, but offers a particular essence all its own. It's less immediately triumphant as that song and leans more a tangible uncertainty of life's trajectory, or even a mourning of what's come to pass. And, you know, that's kinda just how life is in the grand scheme of things. Fleeting, shifting, never a dull moment to be seen. Anyway, this is just an incredibly beautiful song from top to bottom. Love it. Y'all really couldn't wait till December, could ya?
Just a heartbroken bitch, high heels, 6-inch in the back of the nightclub, sipping champagne.
I'm far from the first to say it, but this is really good. As I said already, Ray has been such an excellent new face in the scene, and this may very well be the best hit we've got right now. But once again, list season exists, so I'll keep this short. At the moment, what's most exciting to me is that this actually feels like a real song. There's build-up, loaded verses, a super cool pre-chorus, and outro? Be still my beating heart. I don't know, it's just nice having something with such depth and character steady in the pop charts. Also, quick shout out to 070 Shake, who I've been rooting for since she was introduced in my very first subscriber special. Next step is getting Guilty Conscious to Hitsville. TikTok kids, you know what to do. I'm a pretty big fan of Angel in Real Time, and yet I still had not gotten around to listening to Gang of Youth's earlier material until this very sub-special. But now that I have, wow, I've definitely been missing out. This song is so cool, from its big anthemic sound to its open-hearted lyricism about healing from previous heartbreak and ultimately learning to love again. This is very clearly a message from the speaker to his current partner, but so many of these lines also feel like a mantra he's telling himself. Heartbreak can really take a lot out of a person, and it often feels like it takes leagues of motivation to move past the uncertainty, but it can be so worth it. Even if that life partner never falls into one's lap so cleanly, at least there's a potential for renewed strength at the other side.
The heart is a muscle, and I wanna make it strong.
The cacophonous bray of horns at the reveal of the title line is one of my very favorite moments of this whole song. It's absolutely wonderful. I do have to admit that it doesn't hit quite as hard as many of my favorite tracks from Angel in Real Time, but it's a different kind of song anyway, and regardless, man, does this really make my heart full. So, by some crazy coincidence, I seem to have gotten 2 songs with Twilight connections in this subscriber special. Okay, sure. Y'all
already know my thoughts on Paramore, but did you know that I'm actually a closeted Twilight fan as well? I'm an old emo, this should come as no surprise. But I'm pretty glad that this particular song was pushed, because this is among my very favorite Paramore songs ever. The instrumental is certainly a lot darker than I'm used to hearing from the band, dwelling in an almost post-hardcore range of dreariness and passion, and that brings a really cool vibe to the song. Moreover, these lyrics are intense and panicked, which fits this vibe to a T.
But you think that I can't see what kind of man that you are.
As campy and ridiculous as that first film is, I think what often gets lost in translation is a sense of groundedness, specifically the innermost feelings of our protagonist as she gets thrown into this terrifying situation far beyond her control. Not to mention that, oh yeah, these people are freaking vampires. And in that sense, I think Decode does a good job at filling in those missing pieces. It more or less sums up the emotional narrative while bringing a lot more reality into the situation, higher stakes and all. On top of this, Hayley Williams' performance is just fantastic. She brings so much weight to the track, which is just stunning considering how damn corny pretty much everything else Twilight adjacent really is. But, you know, I'm pretty thankful for that, cause this rules. Rihanna is so good, y'all. And like, damn, I always forget just how good this song is until I listen to it for the first time in a while. Just the absolute classiest, searing, smoky energy all over this one, I swear. I've been saying this ever since I first heard this album, but the isolated guitars during the chorus give me such intense Prince energy. Yeah, I know, it's not the first song that I've compared to Prince here. I'm a broken record, deal with it. But besides that, yeah, it's all about Rhea herself, who is equal parts commanding and sensual throughout, working in excellent synergy with the deep sense of the instrumental.
Man, fuck your pride. Just take it on back, boy. Take it.
I love how intense and impassioned her vocals get at the pre-chorus before she draws it back again for that smooth, titillating chorus. This is just a tremendously well-executed pop song. I can't think of a single thing I'd want to change about it personally. If there's any song here that deserves to make it in the top 20 off sheer atmosphere alone, it's gotta be this one. It's more than deserving. Jesus Christ, man. I have no idea how I'm gonna tackle this next one, but I'm damn well gonna try. I tend to hold Nirvana the closest to my heart, but the title of second best of the 90s grunge masters, according to me, would easily go to Alice in Chains. Nutshell in particular is one of their deeper cuts, and boy is it a rough one. It's a harrowing examination of the deep despair that accompanies drug addiction, with the speaker opening up on his absolute helplessness in the struggle.
And yet I fight this battle all alone.
Others have tried to help him, but have now given up completely. Moreover, he is powerless to change the image and narrative that others have carved for him because, well, the world was simply not designed for this level of empathy. Thus, he remains alone, and the song captures the utter bleakness of it all so very powerfully. The deep droning textures of Lane Staley's voice give an absolutely haunting undercurrent to the song, especially in those moments where he expresses this gnawing pain of his banishment from the world around him, concluding that he would indeed be better off dead.
If I can't be my own, I feel better dead.
God damn it, man. The guitars flutter in and out of the environment, like a deep specter invading his spotlight, until he drops out altogether, after which this guitar performs its dismal chords within the isolation. And altogether, it just hurts to listen to. It's very likely one of the best songs I've ever heard from the band, and an immensely searing work of art to its core. Okay, Liz, that was kinda tough. Let's think of a good transition away from that one. More anime? Real talk, Cowboy Bebop is probably the best anime TV series I've ever seen. It's got this particular mood and aesthetic I absolutely adore and have never seen properly duplicated anywhere else. Which is why it's my curse that this entry also doubles as a point and laugh at Liz while they try to talk about jazz segment. But I'm gonna try.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
In case you're somehow unaware, a major factor of the show's absolute coolness is the electrifying score by Yoko Kanno, with the show's theme Tank standing as likely the quintessential example. It really boils down to its pure vibrancy, its brilliant melding of a big band style jazz with Latin-inspired brass, percussion, and other inflections throughout. It's fierce and wild, but also incredibly slick, sophisticated, and an excellent vibe setter for the series as a whole. Having grown up watching the truncated version of Tank in each episode's opening, it's always such a treat to check out the full-length version, particularly for that sick alto saxophone solo. We could always use more sax solos in our world, TBH. Overall, this is just such a rad piece of music, and I think its quality is pretty self-evident at this point. You listen to it and just feel it, man. What more is there even to say? One thing you should always remember is to never underestimate how much of a hopelessly sentimental sap I am.
Why are there so many songs about rainbows?
Especially when it comes to some of my favorite artists and musicians of all time. Paul Williams is an absolute treasure, y'all. He's composed some of the most sincerely beautiful songs of this last century, and you're damn right the Rainbow Connection is one of them. Thematically, it's pretty simple. Rainbows are phenomena of nature, something we can see but can't quite touch or feel. So if we stretch their image to represent something as equally intangible as dreams and desires, the Rainbow Connection bridges that gap and makes it real. It takes a certain level of old-timey sensibility to find any profound meaning in that, and hi, yes, that's me.
What's so amazing that keeps us stargazing?
The song really taps into a feeling that I think everyone undergoes at some point in their lives, the longing to make something more of themselves, to find the key to whatever happiness is in the cards for them. It's something I've certainly felt, and I don't know, sometimes I just need a funny little frog to let me know that such a thing is possible, if only I try to make it so.
Have you been half asleep and have you heard voices?
Even then, it's not just the songwriting. This recording in particular is just so remarkably peaceful, from the simple banjo chords to the cinematic strings throughout. And geez, there has to be some kind of science behind why Jim Henson as Kermit the Frog is the warmest, friendliest sound in the universe. With the hustle and bustle of everything, and how easy it is to dwell in shallow cynicism, I will always value adorable tunes like this to keep me grounded. I've definitely cried a bit more than a handful of times during my re-listens. This one just hits a certain chord for me that few other songs do. What a tune. Well, I made this pretty easy for myself. Spoilers if you haven't seen it, but I talk about this song over in my Best of 1987, and you should go watch that if you haven't. I go pretty in-depth over there, and there's not really much else I can add to that, to be honest. This is widely considered one of the greatest pop songs of the whole decade, and gosh does it deserve the title. Beloved friends of assorted genders, I am pleased to present to you Sex. The entire thing. A lot of people who know me know that I am notoriously apathetic about, like, most pop music from the 2010s. But even with that said, I'm completely baffled as to why Miguel has passed by my radar this entire time. I know, Sure Thing is getting a second go around right now, but it wasn't that song that drew me to him. It was this one.
I wish I could pay.
Dang, where do I even start? The warm caramel-coated atmosphere of Miguel's music is exactly my style, and Coffee is just, my goodness, so perfect. It's easily one of the most romantic songs I've heard recently, these lyrics operating as a hazy collage of simple, seemingly trivial moments between two lovers. Except they're never trivial. Because what is a life shared with someone if not a thread of shared memories that collectively fashion something bigger than their individual parts? And the repeated imagery of each morning's coffee, a daily habit for many, becomes that much more intimate with this added context. In this universe,
Making coffee is the single most attractive thing you can do for someone. And yes, the song is also deeply sexual, but it's very mature about this facet, treating physical intimacy as this beautiful, even spiritual experience that, frankly, few other songs can pull off quite so well. But god, yes, this song is incredibly hot, sensual, cuddly even, and I've been growing more and more obsessed with it as time goes on. I just can't help it when it's this lush and gorgeous. You simply can't pass up such beauty. I certainly can't with this one. To be clear, I love every single song from this point forward, like a lot. With that said, let's go ahead and get the boring entry out of the way now.
Nigga, why you babysitting? Only 2 or 3 shots. I'ma show you how to turn it up a notch. First you get a swimming.
Y'all, what do you even want me to say about this one? Out of the entirety of Kendrick Lamar's illustrious discography, I can confidently state that Swimming Pools is the one song of his that has been discussed, unpacked, and analyzed the most. And I know because guess what? I already talked about this song. Best hits of the 2010s, y'all. There's your homework. But like, okay, just to say something here. Yes, this song is intense, dealing with the personal experiences Lamar has had with alcohol abuse, as well as the multi-generational aspects of alcoholism as a disease, particularly within Black communities. It's a slick and catchy tune, but also incredibly harrowing. And there's also really not much I can say beyond this without feeling like I'm stepping into some personal territory that's not mine to dissect. So yeah, let's just leave it at that. Oh, and here's what I put above Swimming Pools.
So, I typed a text to a girl I used to see, saying that I chose this cutie pie with whom I want to be, and I apologize.
Let it be known that I have a real soft spot for Southern hip-hop, particularly 90s Southern hip-hop, and, well, this isn't from the 90s, but it also feels like the absolute pinnacle of the genre. If nothing else, it's probably the most romantic turn the genre ever took. The very first thing you hear is Andre 3000's introductory verse, which sets the scene so perfectly.
Spaceships don't come equipped with rear view mirrors, they dip as quick as they can.
It covers the speaker's anxieties and twisted emotions about him settling down into marriage. And Dre's lines are absolutely slick, and the verse downright cements this tune to legendary status from the get-go.
Play your part.
And then the members of UJK pop in, filling us in on their own quest into nabbing that special lady, and alright, standard flexing and casual misogyny aside, this is just incredibly hype. That brilliant Willie Hutch sample brings in the strong, bittersweet sentimentality that undercuts it all, and man, at the end of the day, this is just such a happy tune. It's an incredibly triumphant little song, and much like Tuesday's Gone, it also feels like the perfect tune to represent any kind of transition from one stage of life into the next. And you aren't doing it alone, which makes the journey that much more worth it. They just don't make posse cuts like this anymore. Discovery is my favorite Daft Punk album. It's where I feel the duo were at their strongest. And Digital Love is pretty rad. It's always felt to me like a love song between two metaphysical beings swimming inside the radio waves of the universe. The sound is pretty damn cool, replete with lush and dreamy samples, and a centerpiece guitar breakdown that feels like a substitution for an intense, unspeakable romance. However, this song is also a piece of a larger whole, which I'm a bit more intimidated to take on. Thus, I'll pass this over to my partner and certified Daft Punk expert Malcolm. He can probably sum up the appeal of the song much better than I can. Take it away.
To be honest, there are so many better tracks off Discovery I'd rather be talking about, Digital Love itself being a bit overplayed. So what makes this track so popular? Is it the catchy melody, the vocoder effect, the soaring guitar solo? For me, regardless of how I feel about this track, it is an essential part of its story. Daft Punk's Discovery is not just a standalone project, but the soundtrack to the anime Interstellar 5555. Shep, a pilot for an extraterrestrial band, is head over heels for Stella, the band's bass player. She embodies the hopeless romantic, the fool in love. He dreams of being with Stella, his fantasies running wild with images of the two of them flying over pink rose petal hills. This is our hero's interior drive, and this song is his call to action. The band has gotten abducted and are being exploited. Thus, Shep goes to great lengths to rescue the band and especially Stella. He serves as our emotional connection, his courage coming from a place of love. If he fails, he'll never get to confess his love. It's never fully explained if Stella reciprocates these feelings, but that doesn't deter our hero. I feel a lot of us can connect to Shep. We've all had that one crush we've dreamed of connecting to, but have never had the courage to make the first move. It isn't until we are tested that we fully grasp how little time we have, and how we must go after what or who makes us the happiest. This may be one of their most played out songs, but I think people are attracted to the song because of the themes of love, and how powerful Daft Punk are able to encompass that with their electronic robotic flair.
First of all, this is absolutely not my area of expertise. I am, for the most part, not a huge fan of this type of, I guess you can call it mainstream rock, alternative metal, whatever it is. For the most part, it just ain't my scene. And with what I'm about to say, I want to stress that I really don't tend to insult anyone who does generally enjoy the genre. Different tastes and interpretations keep things interesting after all. With that said, God Went North by Nothing More feels like something on a higher plane of quality entirely. The atmosphere is thick, its emotions are heady, and rightfully so, considering the material we're dealing with.
Hospital bed, a room filled with flowers.
This narrator is grieving over the death of his mother, but it's a death that's yet to come, very soon. We get the opening imagery of a hospital room filled with flowers, a cruel analogy of a beautiful living thing plucked from this earth to disintegrate before our very eyes. And yet the speaker is, well, certainly devastated, but also cold, stony, actively holding on to whatever shred of external poise he can as he internally works through these messy, complicated emotions. His efforts to drink in every last moment with his mother while he still can. His plea to some higher power to make her death as quick and easy as possible. And then she's gone. It's just him and his emotions now, and there's nothing he can do at this point except dwell in them. And it's here where something completely snaps. The dam holding back his emotional integrity is pierced open, and he is now bereft of any strength or willpower to continue holding back. There are a few more powerful instances on this entire list than that moment right there. This continues through the song's closure, where his forceful demands crumble into raw, primal screams, like he's reverted back to a child stage now that the one person who has given him life can no longer hold him together. It's, God, just so powerful, too much for words. And finally, the cool down. The desolate but very necessary path to acceptance, perhaps healing. Nothing will ever feel complete again, but maybe this reality will eventually sink in. Only time can tell. I always have so much love for terrific surprises like these, and this is just exquisite. On the other hand, this is entirely my area of expertise.
I lit a thin green candle to make...
I honestly never thought I'd actually get a Leonard Cohen song voted into my subscriber special, much less one that isn't the one everyone knows. But here we are, and finally my moment has come. So this song comes from his debut record, Songs of Leonard Cohen, which is the same album as some of his most famous ballads. But as gorgeous and majestic as Suzanne and So Long Marianne are, I've always had a particular intrigue for the darker corners of his songwriting. The pieces particularly infatuated with existential conflict and complicated relationships. For the record, if Master Song were the one that was pushed, it would have far and away topped this ranking. But that'll never happen. Anyway, it should be noted that One of Us Cannot Be Wrong is a bit unusual for the performer. First of all, it's the closing track, but where he at least played alongside some light backing instrumentation throughout the album, here he's all alone, just him and his guitar singing to anyone who'd listen, even if that someone is no one. Okay, I say I'm an expert, but truthfully, I'm not convinced anyone is capable of truly, fully deciphering the intrigue of Cohen. Typical of the artist, his poetry here is abstract, enigmatic, purposefully drenched in metaphor, and replete with loose ends that never truly get tied. But I have a job to do here, so let me actually try to unpack this one. Like a lot of Cohen songs, this one addresses a woman to whom he is attracted. Perhaps only physically, perhaps a bit more. But mainly, this narrative draws across his interactions with a series of individuals, seemingly unrelated, save for their past experiences with this very woman.
Then he wrote himself a prescription, and your name was mentioned in it.
The world Cohen paints is a grim one, as all characters have met their eventual demise at her hands. One has committed suicide, another has become mentally unstable. But his fascination lingers on, in spite of, or perhaps because of this dangerous cloud that surrounds her. And like, the implications of this are probably not great, but it really is interesting how Cohen presents these happenings as a wicked transgressions of this cold yet beautiful woman, while he himself is the one who comes off powerless perhaps, but mostly captivated by what she has to offer.
But you stand there so nice in your blizzard of ice. Oh, please let me come into the storm.
For the record, these are some of my favorite closing lines of any of his works, but even then, that's not where it ends. Cohen's soft whistling plays us out, but then so does the deranged singing of a new background voice. I always imagine that the voice is one of the characters in the story wailing out from their own personal agony, or perhaps it's the speaker himself tracing along this romantic melody while wailing over the emotional wreckage that lies in his future. But goddamn, believe me when I say that I haven't even scratched the surface with this song. I haven't even gotten to the visual metaphors here, nor the dark humor of this song, nor the spiritual interpretations. It's a lot, as Cohen songs tend to be. But damn it, that's exactly why I love him so. I know this was long and indulgent, but I really don't know when I'll be able to pour over this man's work as freely. In short, I love this song. Thank you for listening.
Do you want to see the house my mother raised me? Just a corner mile.
Finally, a song that puts into words a topic I've held close to my heart for so long. First of all, please listen to Actor Observer's 2018 album Pareidolia. It's a terrific blend of post-hardcore intensity with just as many calmer, emotional moments, glued together by so many catchy riffs and grooves. It's just incredible. And the record reaches a mesmerizing climax with its title track and closer, and, well, as you can tell, it's bold and striking from the very first second. Brazen emotional intensity lives at the forefront, while spare ghostly guitars occupy the background. And these vocals, dear lord, these vocals. Definitely some of the most cutting screams I've heard in quite some time, balanced out by those absolutely heart-wrenching melodic sections.
Maybe we both just wanted it to be over. So we turned and followed familiar.
The narrative concerns a speaker revisiting a childhood home which had just gotten sold away. They visit this house and ruminate on the staggering, sterile unfamiliarity of the walls that then surround them. And God, I am such a sucker for stuff like this. The act of taking the tangible, material world around you, inherently blank and meaningless, and drawing from it something true, perhaps something representative of a larger concept. And then returning to this thing to which you've attached so much importance and so many memories, both good and bad, and seeing it rendered unrecognizable, estranged, lifeless. God, how do you even cope with that feeling? The answer is, maybe you don't. At least not completely. But then that leads me to hone upon the impermanence of life itself. Nothing ever truly lasts forever, and as an extension of this, no object contains any inherent value except that which we place upon it. It's not a realization that anyone ever wants to recognize, but it's a necessary truth. And coming to terms with this is a useful step toward beginning to embrace life around us, moment by fleeting moment. And these are the feelings that come to mind when I listen to Pareidolia. Certainly as the harrowing instrumental swells in unbridled intensity, its enormity near unrecognizable to how the song had begun. And when I said that these were some of the most impactful screams I'd heard in a while, I meant it. A flurry of wretched, uncontainable emotion bubbles at the foreground. It's pain, ruptured, but also big, assertive, fully braced to move forward however they can. Damn, that's a hell of a tune. Alright, the last few songs gave me quite a lot to talk about, so let's just chill out a bit for these next few, shall we? Maybe we can talk all night. I I've said this before, but it bears repeating that I absolutely love melodrama. And, well, Jim Steinman was practically the innovator of this particular kind of melodrama, combining sweeping bombast with catchy melodies made for a Broadway stage. And Meatloaf is absolutely perfect to take on the pathetic rock ballad that is this song.
I want you, I need you, but there ain't no way.
This song revolves around this pathetic, blubbering narrator admitting to his partner that this relationship they're in hinges on deep admiration, physical attraction, codependency, but just not love, whatever the hell that even means. And a loveless relationship is just a waste of everyone's time. There's no use trying to force the damn thing. Steinman was a brilliant songwriter with his matchless ability to craft phrases like "I'm crying icicles instead of tears" and "there ain't no Coupe de Ville hiding in the bottom of a Cracker Jack box," and placing them center stage like it's no one's business.
There ain't no Coupe de Ville hiding at the bottom of a
And then Meatloaf comes around and professes those silly phrases with the most broken demeanor anyone has ever heard any man perform, and I'm absolutely sold. It's such a sad song. And so brilliant. It expertly straddles that very thin line between deep melancholy and absolute absurdity. I mean, just take that title. 2 out of 3 ain't bad is something you say about a basketball game, not a deep romantic tie being violently severed in real time. It's quite the creative little song. It gets me in the feelings every single time, and I'll always appreciate it for that. This sure sounds like it'd be pretty good music for a trailer. At this point, the story behind the making of Fleetwood Mac's album Rumors has reached such a level of notoriety, I see no sense in reiterating it all here. It was a mess of infidelity at the center of this wonderful rock band who just needed to finish their damn album. It sure was a hell of an album, and The Chain is a hell of a song. The tension of this track is extremely palpable, with the open air of the atmosphere that seems to work as its own character, perhaps a representation of the frayed connections at its core. And within that open air are guitar, bass, vocals, percussion, though always seemingly at an arm's length from each other. Nothing ever feels too grand or cluttered here, just tense. And this song is about, well, the chain. The unspoken bond formed between lovers that keeps them together despite their hardships and disagreements. It's a metaphor of comfort, but the song twists this into something darker, as in, we will always stay together. No matter how much we try to escape, we always end up back in each other's force field, repeating the same cycle of disagreements and lies, because it's just what we know. I want you, I need you, but there ain't no way I'm ever gonna love you. And then this plays us out into the horizon, leaving these conflicts as open-ended as it can get because, well, it's just like that sometimes. It's a cleverly morbid little song, and it's no surprise that it has sustained its run as one of the band's signature tunes. Sometimes love keeps us together after all. This commenter named Bachelorette Björk's most cinematic track, and I could not agree more. I mean, very blatantly, the instrumental of this song feels like something pulled straight out of some Italian western. It's so huge and lush and layered, but it's also incredibly unique. We've got those dense soundscapes on the surface, but as the tune progresses, more trip-hop elements seep their way into the environment. Soon, this space is invaded by the synthetic clashes rolling beneath the surface of the performer's vocals. It's much like 2 entirely separate worlds attempting to meet in the middle for some understanding, with the performer working as a mediator. And oh my god, Björk herself is just incredible. Her singing properly dramatic and hypnotizing the whole way through. It's just so deep and intense in all the best ways, and her cryptic lyricism ties it all together. It's intentionally a bit oblique, but falling in line with the clash of the production, I've always seen this as a speaker trying to desperately understand her lover, despite their differences and disagreements. They both come from entirely different worlds of their own, the pain they cause each other perhaps an extension of their misunderstandings. The prequel to Running Up That Hill, if you will.
You're the intruders.
Uniquely though, the song isn't weak and merciful. It's wild, powerful, and absolutely seductive in practically every cell of its being. It's one of those songs I simply just want to live in for a while, and it takes a special kind of song to make me feel that way for sure. This is quite the special one. This is another song I've talked about previously, though, yeah, I have gotten a lot better at this in the past year and a half-ish, so sure, I'll take another stab at it. I do love it a hell of a lot, after all. This is one of those songs that's just always been around for me. Like, I definitely remember a time before this song existed, but this particular tune has also grown to become a signpost of a particular point in my life. My childhood years, when I was still very much growing, fully unaware of who I was or the person I'd become. But what I did know was that I loved music. And I loved music that sounded like this. And it turns out that a lot of what I admire about this song draws some pretty strong connections to what I would grow to love about my favorite music in general. This might actually have been my introduction to jangle pop, which is a direct through line to my REM obsession, etc. And on that note, there's just very little else that comforts me the way this song does. It occupies that precarious middle ground between bubbly indie pop rock and something on the softer, more ballad-driven side of the pond. It's not a very prickly tune at all. It's warm, dense, earthy. And like so much music I love, its poetic ambiguity taken to heavenly proportions. I want to live where soul meets body is a line that, for me, well, it brings me back to Rainbow Connection, with that song's childlike longing for an existence beyond this one. But it's a longing that's filtered through this very particular kind of dreamy malaise. Our minds wander with the endless possibilities of where our eventual happiness may lie. With another, with ourselves, with nature itself. And if it takes until my dying day to finally reach a genuine moment of absolute contentment, well, I will not go gentle into that good night. But these are all just delicious embellishments to a song I already knew I loved. Very simply put, it's the nostalgia for me. So shocking, I know. Even so, goddamn, few songs besides this one transport me so effectively to such a cozy, carefree point in my upbringing. I'll end this by saying, the mid-2000s were the absolute best for music. I will hear no argument otherwise. I'm just absolutely tempted to go all in on this one because it's absolutely what it deserves. Like, talk about placing personal value and importance onto the music you love. This song feels like a new friend I've introduced in my life, one whose personality seamlessly aligns with my own, one with whom I could spend hours in their presence without feeling like a single second's passed. These are the kinds of things you just can't take for granted, you know? But enough with the abstract talk. I've only just started to really get into them, but I'm fully convinced that Mew have made some of the most beautiful music of this century. And God, just imagine being able to say that you wrote comforting sounds. Incredible. These precise, minimal guitar chords leading us along this, frankly, really sad narrative about deception, dishonesty. It reminds me of Brilliant Disguise in that way, though obviously its differences are far more apparent.
Back when we were kids, we would always know when to stop.
And like, this is all fine and dandy, absolutely gorgeous, but I mean, it's not exactly what I come to this song for. It's tender, quiet, and begins at such a ground zero level of modesty. There's really no way to go from here but up. Wow. Just wow. And like, even more amazing with how this instrumental keeps building and building from here. Just when you think it's right at the edge of its breaking point, it gets ever so slightly more grander, fuller, almost too much to handle. And then it only continues to build. This is just perfect. I was honestly a bit hesitant on whether or not I should not only place this in my prestigious personal all-timers tier, but this high in the tier, considering I've only heard it for the first time relatively recently. But I gotta be honest with myself. This is one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard in my life. Sometimes these things are just that apparent, and I'm not in the business of fighting it. Anyway, I almost feel like I've done this song a disservice by even attempting to go on about what makes it work. It's the biggest emotions you've ever felt in your life, concentrated into 9 powerful minutes. That's really it. You gotta simply feel this one. Just trust me on this and give it a go. Okay, y'all are just cheating with this one, but whatever works, sure. First of all, well, it's funny that I've been complaining about this video being dated because I'm about to date it way more than anyone else has. Y'all, I'm seeing The Cure next month and I could not be more excited. I think if I had to pinpoint a single all-time favorite band, The Cure would be it. Y'all probably already know this though. And you might also already know that Disintegration is one of my favorite records. Fascination Street lies in what I'd like to call the turning point of the album. All of the big pop-oriented tracks are placed at the front, and from this place onward, the record dives into some moodier, down-tempo pieces. But that's not before we enter this song with its pulsing rhythms and deep bass, soon joined by the desolate twinkle of that guitar riff. But like, for as dark and gloomy as this sound is, certainly typical for The Cure, it's actually on a bit of a more liberating subject matter. Simply put, it's about partying. More broadly, it's about enjoying some particular social outing, with the titular Fascination Street working as a stand-in for New Orleans Bourbon Street. And it revolves around a particular anticipation, perhaps anxiety, about what picture-perfect moments are waiting to be experienced in the very near future. Moments one is certain to remember for the rest of their lives. But, I mean, like I said, this is still very much Disintegration goth rock. Robert Smith performs as passionately, sure, but he's also just as frustrated as he sounds throughout the rest of the record. It brings about this push and pull between the surface-level joy to be found, as well as the fear of the unknown, or some other exasperation that drips beneath it all. The haziness of this track permeates to its utmost core, but it's also kind of a banger above it all. And I completely welcome these bangers. It's gloomy, but also fun. It's got party energy, but it may very well be the party at the end of the world. Nonetheless, it stays at that delicate balance between the fun and morbid, and sounds terrific as well. And to be honest, with the trajectory that my subscriber specials often take and how morose they tend to wrap up, it's kind of nice to have songs this high that don't quite fit in that dark, serious subject matter that a lot of my personal all-timers tend to embody. Oh yeah, about that. I simply couldn't imagine. In the months leading up to his death, David Bowie recognized that he would lose his battle to cancer, and this knowledge granted him a distinctive opportunity to make something out of this, a reflection on his life, both as an artist and a person, as well as a sort of farewell to all whose lives he's touched. This resulted in Black Star, with Lazarus being one of the most striking tracks of them all.
I've got scars that can't be seen.
These desolate guitars play like a slow crawl to the end, with the interjection of that saxophone acting like the cold hand of death, making its presence known every so often. And Bowie himself is, well, pretty hard to listen to. He sounds pained, fatigued by the weight of his years that had led up to this moment, absolutely afraid of what happens once this candle is snuffed.
Ain't that just like me?
And the song works in a sort of choreography, carefully and deliberately rolling out a coded version of his life and career, like some grand tapestry. And, well, we're all aware of what comes at the end of this. It's something that happens to every one of us at some point, though not many of us have the privilege of controlling our departure so gracefully. And while no one bears any responsibility to handle their death with any degree of dignity, it's truly remarkable that Bowie had taken it upon himself to delve into his art, as he had many times before, returning one final parting gift to the world before he left it for good. I simply could not imagine.
Ain't that just like me?
And And my God, when he sings this final line, drawing out that last phrase as if he's desperate to cling on to any tiny fragment of the living world as he can, up until the saxophone eases its way into the environment and draws his curtain to a close. God damn, it is some of the most powerful stuff ever. With Lazarus, David Bowie effectively spins triumph out of tragedy, power out of distressing, absolutely frightening conditions, and comes out the other end having completely convinced you, me, all of us, of the utmost power of art and music taken to its logical extreme. And for that, this will always have my respect.
Thank you so much for sticking with me here. Take care, and I'll see you next time.